Everyone, this is Nikachu, and we are here to get back to Legacy. Grand Prix Vegas is on the horizon. We have to be prepared for Legacy, and Legacy got completely turned over its head. The banning of Top happened, and I haven't even been in Legacy for a little while. But do you know what? Before we get on into all that, we're going to thank our sponsor, themanabase.com. You know what? Commander is now a competitive thing on Magic the Gathering Online. And if you want to learn about Commander, you go check out James LePage as a metal worker on themanabase.com. And I have so many new patrons. Everyone wants to get a piece of that Merfolk strategy guide that I have on Patreon. Anyone contributing to me on Patreon gets access to the Merfolk strategy guide. But I thank so much to everyone who is now joining the big wave on Patreon, which is higher than ever. So I like to thank Jacob Idoni, Travis Daleman, Paul Zhu, Emmett Arthur, Henry Novoa, and Laura Bagley. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. And I know I'm totally backed up on the card primers. A card primer is supposed to come out like every $100, and now we're at $300, and I haven't put out anything. I'm very close to a Master of Waves primer out, but there's always something else that I have to do for this channel or for university. So I'm very sorry that they didn't come out, but hopefully by the end of the summer, I'm gonna have all three of them rolled out by the end. But we have to get into Legacy. This is going to be the last league, probably for this channel, before we get into challenges, and I'll be playing challenges probably on a regular basis now on this channel. And I played a little bit of Legacy lately, but not too much. And my first impression is that first off, Jund is back. And it's not, well, you know what? It's not that Jund is back. People have just realized what the right build was. About 4 years ago, people were playing Jund correctly. What I mean by it is there was just a normal stock Jund list with Thoughtseize and Inquisitions and, Bloodbraid Elf, whatever. And then somehow, what caught fire overnight was the Punishing Fire Grove of the Burning Willows Jund list, which for whatever reason got people so excited, like, oh my god, this list is amazing, this is so cool, you get Punishing Fire forever. And it killed the deck, in my opinion, just absolutely murdered it. And there were people way back then that said, you're putting in too many Taigas in this deck because of the Grove of the Burning Willows. And I don't even think the Punishing Fire interaction was even all that relevant at the time in Legacy. Just killed Jund. Jund's numbers went straight to 0. And it never recovered until now. Now we're seeing the non-Punishing Fire list, and you look at the lists. If you look at the Jund list, it could have been played today. There's really not that much different. I mean, maybe Fatal Push didn't exist, but frankly, this list was definitely playable over the last 4 years, and people just opted for this Punishing Fire nonsense. So Jund is back, which is not good for Chalice of the Void. Chalice of the Void useless against Jund because of Abrupt Decay and Inquisition and Thoughtseize and and the Curve, Tarmogoyf, Liliana, Bloodbraid Elf, Kolaghan's Command, all that bad stuff. Another thing, Reanimator, pretty popular online right now, which makes Chalice of the Void even worse. Because they're going off on turn 1 or turn 2, and they generally don't need just 1 mana spells. They can play Exhume and Unmask and loads, and they're gonna have at least one turn where they play Lotus Petals and all their 1 mana spells before we go off. Overall, I feel like I want to play with a little less counter magic, and I want to be a little bit more permanent oriented on the board. And I don't want to play with Chalice of the Void. I feel like Chalice is getting worse and worse and worse. Definitely deserves sideboard space if it's playable at all. I mean, it's probably still a good card, but it's just not main deckable anymore. But I'm gonna try to take this deck in a completely different direction. If you look, we got so many new cards here. I'm gonna try to play with Spell Pierce. It's a very cheap interactive spell that I think interacts decently with Jund. We can counter Hymn to Turok, we can counter Liliana the Veil, we can counter Kolaghan's Command, hopefully we can counter Fatal Push and some other stuff. I want to play with Vapor Snag. I think that's a decent card that can interact with Reanimator. I want it to be cheap because if you make it too expensive, then you're going to get hit by Daze with the Delver decks. You're going to... Reanimator has that creature that they reanimate that will counter a spell unless you pay 1, and that means Echoing Truth really costs 3. Whereas Vapor Snag will only cost 2, and I think that's fine. Of course, we can bounce Laret Mage tokens back to people's hands. We can bounce our own creature to our hand. So I'm hoping that Vapor Snag becomes something. If not, we can always replace it with Dismember or even Echoing Truth if it just doesn't turn out to be very good. Gonna play with Harbinger of the Tides. It's always been meh. But once again, I want to be a little bit more permanent oriented. This thing answers reanimator creatures pretty well. Just bounce them back to their hand. It's always good to put them back into their hand instead of their graveyard or something like that. We're gonna play with 2 Phantasmal Images because I don't really have room for anything else. We're gonna play a very wasteland oriented deck. I'm gonna try out 4 Wasteland, and over a year I was thinking a lot about Wasteland in Legacy, and it probably is a very good card in Merfolk, except you can't play it on the first few turns of the game. There always comes a point against a lot of Legacy decks where by turn 3 or 4, you recognize what color people are stuck on, especially the 3 to 4 color decks. After turns 3 or 4, you realize, well, they only have 1 red mana source, and maybe no cards left in, or not more, no cards left in hand, but they've got 1 red mana source and they aren't playing any more land drops, or they're stuck on green mana, or they're stuck on black. And I think if we're going to keep Spell Pierce alive, we have to play with Wasteland. And I think it's a very good card against Jund because it prevents them from getting to Bloodbraid Elf. It prevents them from getting to. It makes it harder for them to get to Liliana mana because you can keep cutting them off the black mana. But most importantly, yeah, I think how we can play this card is just like Island, Wasteland, True Name Nemesis, and then on turn 4, Wasteland, the color that you're the most weak on. Not to mention, Wasteland is a fine card against combo decks like even Storm. They need a certain density of mana to go off. Although I must say, like, Mutavault's probably better against Storm. Occasionally, you'll get a free win, like where someone just plays a land and then plays like Delver, and then next turn doesn't play another land drop, passes, you Wasteland them, and then the game is over. But yeah, that's how I'm going to want to play with Wasteland. We're going to use the land to curve out, but at the end, we're going to use it to destroy something, either a man land or like a Creeping Tar Pit out of some decks, blow up. And then blow up the color that's sensitive. And like there's a lot of lands in Legacy that we can destroy. I mean, the lands deck has plenty of things that we can destroy. What else? I'm going to be very heavy on Relic of Progenitus. Almost every single deck uses the graveyard in some way or form, except for maybe Elves. So I think Relic is incredibly well positioned. So well positioned that I want to jam 2 in the main deck, and I'm going to put 2 more in the sideboard. I just think it is that good. And I have more lands in the sideboard, including an extra... Like, for example, we can't play with... I don't want to play with too many Cavern of Souls. We just have so many cards that require blue mana, like Spell Pierce, Vapor Snag, Spreading Seas, occasionally Gilded Drake, Phantasmal Image, that... I want extra blue mana over making my creatures uncounterable. I think with Spell Pierce and Curse Catcher, and even Force of Will, we'll have enough game against counter spells that we won't be too reliant on Cavern of Souls. On the other hand, I want to get used to being able to take Aether Vial out against the Wasteland decks. So when we take out Aether Vial, we'll bring it in with all this stuff. And we can't really count Wasteland as a land. We're going to consider it as a pseudo-land / spell. So really we're bringing our land count to 19 post-board because we do expect that these Wastelands are going to blow up other lands. What else to say about this deck? We're going to try out Spreading Seas. I didn't approve of this card in the past because, in theory, like, it's not really going to give you Island Walk. You have to be able to target a basic, because otherwise, if you don't target a basic, people can just Wasteland the non-basic land. But is that really bad? I mean, if we play Spreading Seas, draw a card, and they Wasteland themselves, are we really behind? I don't think so. So I want to try out Spreading Seas. I don't know how well it will work against the Delver decks, but you know what? They're a 4-color deck that's pretty darn sensitive to land hate. So it's possible with the Wastelands and the Spreading Seas is we're going to go all out land destruction on them, and hopefully they can't cast their spells anymore. The downside to this is that because it's an island, they can use days to return their land back to their hand. so that may not work too well against the Delver decks. But I think there are enough non-Delver decks, non-blue decks now that we might want to consider this card, because the Loam decks, the Jund decks, occasionally Red-Black Reanimator. I'm not sure if it will be useful against Red-Black Reanimator. I haven't tested this card at all. But we'll see. I would like to see if Spreading Seas has a place, and it'll probably give us actually a significantly larger edge against Death and Taxes, which is normally an atrocious matchup. Well, I wouldn't say atrocious. It's playable. It's just not very friendly, and hopefully it gives us game against Elves, which is an atrocious matchup. So we have a way of getting through all the Elves really has a lot of way of blocking our creatures. I believe it's Wirewood Symbiote that lets them return creatures elves back to their hand. So they like just chump block, return stuff back to their hand, replay it, and gives them infinite blockers. We're going to have Gutshot mostly for elves, and it has niche spots against Delver and some other decks. We have more Spell Pierces for combo decks. And we're going to have Gilded Drake just for the stupid unfair decks. We might bring it in against Reanimator. I don't know how well it will work against them. We're definitely going to bring it in against Show and Tell. What it does is when it enters the battlefield, we exchange control of Gilded Drake with something else. And yeah, that's it. So we get to steal their Emrakul at their draw step while vialing this thing in. And it's permanent. This is a permanent effect, unlike Sower of Temptation. Another thing is, because we're a Wasteland deck, I tried to bring the curve down as much as possible. Our most expensive casting cost spell is True Name Nemesis. We're not playing with Vendilion Click. Because we're not playing with Click or Venser, like, I would rather Gilded Drake was Karakas, but it's a little weird playing Karakas without Click or Venser. Maybe it's possible, I don't like it. Because, for example, against, let's say the Lands deck, you could play Karakas, but they might Pithing Needle it when they see it. I don't know. So I'm just going to try out Gilded Drake here. I'm really excited to see how well the Wastelands and Relics do, because I really hope Relic is going to be a big card here. Tarmogoyf's still a big card in the format, despite Fatal Push. Tasigurds, Gurmag Anglers all over the place. Deathrite Shaman, of course, biggest card in Legacy, and Snapcaster Mage. So yeah, that's the list. Hopefully it does well. Do I have 60 cards in the main deck? Do I have 15 cards on the sideboard? I do. Let's go play our last Legacy League. We're in the die roll. Yeah, we can keep this. It's fine. Pretty decent hand. Oh, I gotta say, all these islands nicely donated by Zedoua. A fan out there. Frankly, I like my Grow lands better, but you know what? We can switch it up a little bit. This is actually the nicest full art land I think that's out there on the market. So we're going to start off with a Relic of Progenitus, and hopefully turn 2 Silvergill Adept. So this could be Storm. This could be anything, actually. Underground Sea Pond. Like, what am I doing? Trying to assume things. So I should actually mention that Spell Pierce is also in this deck to help us against Engineered Plague, which is being played by a lot of decks. So that gives us a little game against Engineered Plague, something that Flusterstorm can't deal with. Camera Souls came on time, so I think... yeah, why not? We might as well show... yeah, we'll show the True Name Nemesis. Not a big deal. So the idea is just get some pressure out first, and then eventually Wasteland whatever I think is weak from our opponent. We've got a Vapor Snag, so we'll get in here for 2. See what this deck is all about. A bug deck. Just beat old. Who knows what this is? Abrupt Decays the Silvergill Adept. Alright, that's... I guess I shouldn't Relic now. We'll Relic afterward. Maybe he'll misclick and hit his Abrupt Decay. And I think the most mana efficient thing to do is play Mutavault, True Name Nemesis. And then next turn we are going to Wasteland. And probably attack the Mutavault at the same time. Oh, do you know what? I shouldn't have... Well, I guess this is fine. If they play Liliana, we still kill it with the Mutavault, but there's probably a better way of going about this. Yeah, I could have played Wasteland first to play around Liliana. Or I could have even played something else to leave Mutavault up. Just didn't think about it at the time. So I could have played like Harbinger of the Tides for like not much value, but not a big deal. I'm just gonna play Harbinger for nothing. So let's choke. Oh no. I have to kill... Oh shoot, this is a comical of errors. Because I have to kill the Liliana. I forgot to kill the Liliana! Now he could Wasteland my Wasteland. Actually, you know what? Let's leave Liliana. I can dump this Cavern of Souls. And we'll attack with 2 creatures next turn. Hopefully that is enough. There's a Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf we can interact very well with. Gonna attack Liliana. Liliana down. I thought I was going to play Curse Catcher post-combat, but it looks like I'm not doing that anymore. And I really don't want to play it right now because... so if I'm doing nothing... Yeah, I'm just going to pass. I wish I kept the island up because that represents more things like Spell Pierce. But if I play Curse Catcher, then I get blown up by Abrupt Decay. So not exactly the tightest game of Magic... But whatever. I think this is a fine time to pop the Relic, though. That was not a fine card to get, though. So this looks like my opponent has no removal, because I think they would have played Harbinger of the Tides. They would have killed the Harbinger of the Tides to pump the Tarmogoyf up. I'm definitely playing Harbinger of the Tides to bounce the Tarmogoyf. It is a matter of, do I want to attack with the Mutavault here? I guess we can get Aether Vial online. Start with Aether Vial. Not a very impressive card here. But better than nothing. Opponent might have dazed and just think, well, let's just burn it here because why not? A wasteland of their own. Okay, there goes the Mutavault. I'm keeping a land in my hand because of, well, basically because of Liliana. Because if it ticks up, then we end up losing a good card in our hand. Okay, so we've lost everything here. So they only have a Tarmogoyf left. We also have nothing left. We did find a Lord of Atlantis. Oh, that stuff I said about Liliana and ticking up. Why? Yeah, I could have just passed with this island in my hand. Okay, ponder. Maybe our opponent will not tick Liliana up. Oh, actually, this is going to be a great play. He's going to empty his hand. Hopefully. How is this going to work? Okay, so I could Vapor Snag this back to my hand. Or I could let it die. Because the thing is, I have Vapor Snag to kill the Tarmogoyf. How fancy do I move? So I snag this back to my hand. I have to dump the Curse Catcher and still deal with the Tarmogoyf. I think it's best that I let this die. He's going to play the Tarmogoyf. We're going to bounce it to his hand, make him discard it, and then it will be Curse Catcher versus Liliana the Veil. Not the greatest. Not the greatest matchup, but one Lord or any creature should pull it in for us. I'm playing incredibly sloppy, but whatever. So he dumps his Tarmogoyf. Now, Liliana cannot edict the Curse Catcher away. This is an atrocious time to draw this card. We will definitely lose it. Okay, that's not good. Fortunately, we can play stuff at end of turn with Aether Vial. Okay. Well, that's not good. That's not good news. These are all coming at the wrong time. Force of Will, pretty bad top deck in this situation. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so let's Spreading Seas the Bayou. We can tap Cavern of Souls because we don't have to worry about counter magic. And we've got one of these things. All right. Curious, how many green sources do you have in this deck, man? Well, who cares? You have a Deathrite Shaman, so you're on your way. Opponent likely has a removal spell in hand. Or not, had a land. Not bad, not bad. We're going to try to attack this Liliana. We're going to be successful. Opponent's life total is not something to target right now because they've got Deathrite Shaman, so they can bring their life total to whatever they want. The most important thing is pressuring this Liliana the Veil. That's good to see. So we can double attack the Liliana. Wonder how our opponent's going to play this, because they could Edict, make us lose a Curse Catcher. Otherwise, we're going to just double attack this Liliana anyway. Yeah, sure. That's interesting. Because I could somehow make my opponent... Oh, I guess that's why they discarded the land last time, just in case we were to Vapor Snag them again. Makes some sense. You know what? Let's just not fool around here. Let's attack the Liliana. And then we're going to go to work on our opponent's life total soon. But right now it's just a staring contest. It is a 2/2 creature versus a creature that can gain 2 life every turn. So we have some protection against Mass of the Pearl Trident thanks to our Vapor Snag. We got a little bit more. Opponent might have a removal spell. In that case, we are just going to Vapor Snag the Mass of the Pearl Trident back to our hand. I'm going to Violin Lord of Atlantis at end of turn. If we were to Vial it in right now, we would just get in 1 more point of damage. I sort of don't like the idea of that. And I don't want to hardcast this thing into, say, Force of Will. That would feel terrible. I mean, that would just be a beating. Sure, you gotta ponder. Fetch land on board is gonna look pretty good right now. He chose to shuffle. Drew a card, play this Misty Rainforest. We'll Violin our Lord, and then start getting in for some real damage. Some insurance against some bomb of some sort. Oh, I could try to kill him right now? Do I try to kill you right now? I guess not. You're going up to 3. I'm in the driver's seat, so I think we can just keep passing the turn a little bit. I'm very concerned he's got, like, Force of Will or something in his hand. Alright, so he gave up. That was the end of the road for that guy. So against Bug, what are we gonna want here? They don't play Daze, so Spreading Seas could be legit. Gutshot, definitely no. We'll try Spell Pierce. We're definitely going to bring in Wasteland. Their curve gets pretty high. Liliana and Jace the Mind Sculptor. And we're definitely going to bring in Relic of Progenitus. So this, and we'll bring in Cavern of Souls. And I think this is a matchup where we don't want to... we'll try not to play with Aether Vial, even though it looked pretty good, that match. I don't think we need Spreading Seas. I could be wrong. I think Force of Will is still a card that I want to play with. Maybe some experience would say no. Maybe we'll take out one. Because Force of Will, you still need to counter things like... Yeah, I'm going to keep it in. You still need to counter things like Engineered Plague. You still need to counter Liliana the Veil. You also sort of want to counter him to Turok, so you have some selection about what cards get dumped. Yeah, we'll just play with one less. How about that? Just play with one less. And try this deck out. So even after I goofed up a lot, we still got there. This hand is playable, I guess. I sort of look at the I look at the Mutavault like it's a whoa. We were up against Delver the entire time. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to let Delver resolve, and I'm going to try to race it. This is going to be my plan. I found that I have the most success against Delver when I just try to race the damn thing. So we're going to save the Force of Will for protecting our creatures, and we'll let the Delver resolve. Sure. So Delver is going to flip next turn for sure. All right then. Maybe we'll play Master the Trident instead. Yeah, Abrupt Decay is going to be difficult to counter. That's for sure. Okay. But Abrupt Decay not going to get played this turn. But maybe Fatal Push. Although I don't really want to force away any of these creatures that I have right now. Okay. That's where Shaman resolves. Merfolk. To be honest, I think we are losing this race. We are on a 4-turn clock. Our opponent's hitting us for 5 a turn. We are a bit slower than them. How fast does this increase their clock? Well, I guess I have to Force Will something. He's going to Abrupt Decay something this turn. So that's just how it is. Very interesting turn of events. make the most of this, though. Mass of the Pearl Trident, attack for 3, goes down to 12. 2-turn clock, play Mutavault, Vapor Snag. I get hit for 5, go down to 7. Vapor Snag should help me by 1 turn. Based on how quickly the Force of Will resolves, I don't feel like... Well, my opponent definitely doesn't have Daze, because they would have floated a mana and returned a land to their hand. So I think that gives me the go-ahead to just play the Mass of the Pearl Trident. We're going to take 1 more hit. I'm not sure what's more important, to get in damage or to keep our life total high, because we definitely don't want to get too low because of Deathrite Shaman. But at the same time, I want to be able to start wailing on my opponent's life total. Because if we play Mutavault and Vapor Snag, then we're not actually getting anywhere. Because we're going to have to take a turn off just to play the Master of the Pearl Trident and attack with the Master of the Pearl Trident and not the Mutavault anyway. What is this going to be? That's pretty big. Okay, so waiting on the Vapor Snag turned out fine. So we get to bounce this guy. Our opponent has a few things. Definitely Fatal Push could be up the sleeve of our opponent. It is not. Vapor Snag, Tombstalker. And then hopefully have lethal by next turn. We do have 10 power on the board. And that's going to be the manabase.com Get Dunked On Instant Replay. And our opponent can only get up to 7. Fortunately, we're still out of range of Deathrite Shaman and Delver of Secrets going into the next turn. I wonder if there was anything telling in Game 1 that could have told me that this was not Shardless Bug and it was Deathrite. This was Bug Delver. Anyone recognize anything? Like, because you can put Liliana the Veil in a Bug Delver deck. That's for sure, and it's become a lot more. Oh, sorry. I'm sure there are a lot of people in the comments section saying this is not Bug Delver. This is Team America. It's playing Tombstalker and Liliana. No, it's Bug Delver. All right, it's Bug Delver. It's got the bug colors. It's got the Delver. It's Bug Delver. I think it's ridiculous that this is called Team America, and it's got a stupid name too. It's just like how there are 2 different names for Storm. I mean, yeah, the style is different, but whatever. Storm is Storm. All right, let's just go in for the kill. Fortunately, there's no blowout cards here. Like, if there was a Fatal Push on our Master of the Pearl Trident, it's still... Deathrite Shaman can't, like, surprise block the Master of the Pearl Trident. And our opponent had nothing. All right, so that is a nice, clean... sort of start to our league against Bug Delver. I think we saw some power out of a lot of the cards that we played. Vapor Snag looked good. Wasteland did not actually really do anything, but maybe it did. Who knows? Maybe our opponent had to like ponder for... You never know the effect of Wasteland, you know? Maybe our opponent had to waste a ponder in order to find a green source or a fetch land or something before they could carry their game out with like abrupt decays and stuff like that in Game 1. What else? showed. I think Vapor Snag actually showed a lot of worth. We bounced a Tarmogoyf back to our opponent's hand in game 1, and they discarded it with the Liliana the Veil. We Vapor Snagged the Tombstalker in this game, we comfortably played around Daze. Although I don't know if they have Daze against us post board. What else did this list do? I don't know. I don't think we saw anything else. Did we see Spell Pierce in action? I don't think we saw Spell Pierce in action. Whatever. It was a great game 1. So as usual, we're gonna thank our patrons supporting me on Patreon. I absolutely love you guys, and if you want to support me on Patreon, you're going to get access to the Merfolk Strategy Guide, a detailed list or a detailed write-up of certain archetypes being updated one at a time every single month. You can check that out if you support me on Patreon. And we're going to thank our sponsor, themanabase.com. This has been Nikachu, carrying out Merfolk, making Merfolk great again in Legacy.